The smoke is real with Chris Henry Jr. and a few other schools. He is not signed with Ohio State yet, and it sounds like it could be shortly, or it could take about a day. And we'll talk through all of the options and everything that's going on. As Chris Henry Jr. chose to not sign with Ohio State yet after hearing that Brian Hartline would no longer be the head coach at Ohio State, or the head coach, the offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach at Ohio State. He is going on to be the head coach at USF instead, University of South Florida. This timing does indeed suck for all of this stuff, but it sounds like, it wasn't Brian Hartline that chose the timing or anything like that, so people shouldn't blame Brian Hartline. But a lot of this is, number one, the type of climate we're in right now in college football and hiring and firing and all that kind of stuff that people are going through. And then the other piece of this is that the Texas A&M offensive coordinator Colin Klein, that took the Kansas State job when Chris Kleiman kind of retired out there, he was apparently supposed to be the USF head coach, and that was supposed to be announced. But once Colin Klein saw that Kansas State was opening up, or he got an inclination, whatever, however this worked for him, he wanted that job, obviously with his history, and everything else, and being there and stuff like that. So he wanted that Kansas State job, and then that left USF to kind of scramble a little bit here and try to figure out what they were going to do. They scrambled, and they probably got the best option out of a scramble you possibly could, as Brian Hartline is going to absolutely kill it at USF. He's going to do a great job. However, the scramble and everything else did lead to some mystery with Chris Henry Jr. as the On3 site for Oregon, Scoop Duck, and the On3 site for USC, We Are SC, both reported that Chris Henry Jr. was not aware of Brian Hartline moving on. I know Ryan Day said it in his press conference that Brian Hartline told everybody, but what's being disputed here is not that Brian Hartline didn't tell Chris Henry Jr., it's the timing of which he told him. And it sounds like Chris Henry Jr. found out via Twitter on his way to school that Brian Hartline was going to be the USF head coach. Obviously, that's kind of speculation, rumor, stuff like that. Who knows for sure? But the important thing is that Brian Hartline did let Chris Henry Jr. know. Maybe the timing was a little off, but Ryan Day said it and everything else. Like, so this did indeed happen. It could be the timing issue. We'll see. But right now, the schools that are going after Chris Henry Jr. There are four of them, including Ohio State, and the one right now that kind of has the most buzz, the most momentum, is Oregon, as On3 again is reporting that Oregon currently has the best chance to land Chris Henry Jr. Although he is not currently committed to there, he's currently committed to Ohio State. They believe the momentum is there. They believe the relationship with Dan Lanning is there. They believe that Dan Lanning, or that Chris Henry Jr. is Dan Lanning's number one priority right now in all of college football, like more than anything else, which makes total sense. Chris Henry, an absolute stud. And then also it does help that Ross Douglas, the wide receiver coach for Oregon, is from Ohio. Now, you have to remember Chris Henry Jr. Grew up in Ohio with his dad, who played for the Cincinnati Bengals. So he's been from there, moved out to California. He's been playing out there at Mater Dei, a great high school, with a lot of talent, one of the best, if not the best, high schools in all of in all of high school football, basically all the time. So there is a thought that Oregon is really gaining some momentum here. Ohio State kind of has put on not the full court press, but they are kind of applying some more pressure, and Ryan Day plans to have an extensive conversation with Chris Henry Jr. on Thursday. You're most likely watching this on Thursday. So he plans to have that extensive conversation. My take from it, and from what I know, is that I think that if Chris Henry Jr. Signs on Thursday, that's great news for Ohio State. If you do not get a single notification or anything like that on Chris Henry Jr. on Thursday, I think that bodes really poorly for them, and it makes Oregon the most likely scenario, as maybe Chris Henry Jr. takes some more time after the conversation with Ryan Day and doesn't get fired up to sign right away. Now, these are not the only two schools that are in play here. USC is also in play. There's not been a whole lot of momentum with them. It sounds like with them getting Mark Bowman, they're not pushing nearly as hard as they once were. And there's some dispute about possible, USC is just done spending NIL in this cycle. I've heard some people say that they're like out of NIL. I don't think that's the case that they're out of NIL, but I definitely think that they're trying to be smart with their money here and not just throw it all at one high school kid. So I think that USC is probably fading out of this. And then the new team that came in and made a big offer to Chris Henry Jr., as reported by On3, was Texas, who came in. Now, Texas, their wide receiver coach is interesting as he is an alum of Modern Day, and Texas trying to bring in some playmakers, trying to bring in some wide receivers. And Texas apparently believes that Chris Henry Jr. could make an impact right away at Texas next year, which is something that not every single program that is looking at Chris Henry Jr. can offer or guarantee for him right now. So sounds like that is what Texas is trying to pitch to him a little bit more. We'll see if it works out. If I had to give a guess of where my rankings are right now. He says he's still committed to Ohio State, so I think you have to have Ohio State number one there. Like I said, if it goes through and Chris Henry Jr. doesn't sign and it's Friday morning, I think you probably move Oregon up to number one there. I still have Oregon number two in my rankings of all of this right now. Like I said, you can't really not rank the team that he's committed to number one, so we'll see how that works out. But Oregon, they're going to give a very good NIL deal. Dan Lanning is going to put the full court press on Chris Henry Jr., and Ross Douglas is definitely going to be able to help out. And there's another rumor going around out there that Chris Henry Jr. does not want to go back to Ohio. I've not heard that from anybody or anything credible, so I'll mention it, but I don't think there's a whole lot of credence to it. And primarily because I don't think Chris Henry Jr. knows what he wants to do right now. And so that's the hardest thing with trying to give away like insider information. It's like, well, nobody really has anybody that says, oh yeah, we know for sure where Chris Henry Jr. is going before a report comes out that he's signing with a certain team. I would not even believe that would even happen, because I think Chris Henry Jr. is going through a lot right now with trying to figure out where he's going to sign. And so if he doesn't know, I don't think anybody else really knows. You might have an inclination, you might have a thought or something, but I don't think anybody else knows for sure. So we'll see how that goes on. If I had to do a number three, it would be Texas, big NIL offer, modern day alum there as a wide receiver coach for Texas. We'll see how that works out. And then finally, USC at number four. I just think USC is fading at this point after signing Bowman and working all of that stuff out. So Jaquaden Guilford is also out there, possibly moving on to LSU, but I think Chris Henry Jr. here is the biggest priority for Ohio State to try and keep out of all these wide receivers. So you got the other guys, that's good. Brock Boyd, those guys, you got those guys, but Jaquaden Guilford and Chris Henry Jr. still kind of up in the air. I talked through Jaquaden Guilford a little bit more in the Brian Hartline video with him going to USF and everything like that. So you can go check that out over there if you'd like to. I'll link that down in the description below. And just appreciate everybody being here. Look, one last thing, comment your thoughts and everything, but one last thing. If Ryan Day somehow keeps Chris Henry Jr., Jaquaden Guilford, and he somehow wins the Big Ten championship at the end of the week, no Ohio State fans should argue or be upset with Ryan Day for at least a year. I mean, the guy is undefeated. If he's able to hold on to Chris Henry Jr. after his star offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach just left, and Jaquaden Guilford as well, and somehow manages to beat, not somehow, they're the favored team, but if Ohio State, goes out and beats Indiana, that's just going to be one more thing on his resume, one more thing on how great of a job he's done. So would really appreciate any comments, thoughts, subscribe, do all that good stuff, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. You can make that happen. We would appreciate it if you do make that happen. And we're going to continue to come out with more, recruiting content, Ohio State, all the Big Ten. We cover every single Big Ten team. If you're into that kind of stuff, check us out here at the Big Ten Huddle. We appreciate it. Have a good one.